This is the crop production estimate from the USDA for the state of Wisconsin. Wisconsin corn production is forecast at 538 million bushels. That's down 3% from last year. Soybean production, 110 million bushels, up 7% from last year. Winter wheat production, 15 million bushels, down 13% from the previous year. Oats, 5 million bushels, up 10% from the previous year. Millions upon millions, hundreds of millions of bushels. When we talk about Wisconsin feeding the world, and when we talk about the American farmer feeding the world, that's no lie. Those are the numbers just from Wisconsin to back it up, but it doesn't happen automatically. There are transactions that take place with other countries, but if you're having a trade war between them, that can be a very bad thing. Now, there are times when trade disputes are real, when trade negotiations are necessary, but Hans, it certainly seemed during the last Trump administration that rather than negotiating, it was going right to DEFCON 1 and slapping on tariffs, and a whole lot of those millions of bushels did not get to some of their intended destinations.
Yeah, and what good did it do us? And the other thing, I mean, you spoke about all the obvious ones and the big ones, but one of the big ones that impacts us here in our neck of the wood is ginseng. And those tariffs effectively cut the price of ginseng in half. So that's a really big deal for our economy. So, yeah, I mean, getting into trade wars, I would tend to agree with you, Pat, that there are times when we have to negotiate, and obviously we should always be looking out for our own interests. But relationships between nations and so forth are, I think, very similar to relationships between rural neighbors. We need to have outcomes that are good for everybody in order for the relationship to be sustainable and the business to be done right. And so when you get involved in a trade war, you better know what the hell you're doing, because otherwise it can end poorly. And the other thing that was touted at the time was that we were trying to be more hard-nosed about manufacturing. And I get that to a point, but what's interesting too is on the Republican side, hard-nosed for manufacturing to what end? If it's all going to the top couple percent, and it's not necessarily going to improve wages at the factory floor, then again, what was gained by real people? And when we're talking public policy, we should be worried about people close to the ground, and not multinational corporations that might be doing better because they've got a more competitive situation because of tariffs.
Yeah. So when we say that we're putting a tariff in place, when Trump talks about tariffs, and not just about crops and commodities, but he talks about it in terms of cars that are built in Mexico and then come across the border, that he wants to slap 100% tariff on those. And I think that when you slap that tariff on, that extra fee, and Trump likes to frame it as we're punishing Mexico, we're punishing China, but the real punishment is the American consumer, who still has a demand, still wants to buy products, and now is paying essentially a tax increase so that Trump can look tough.
Well, exactly. And getting back to the world of ag, I feel like we're getting it from both ends, because we're inhibited from being competitive in the export market, and that will obviously Brazil knows how to grow soybeans as well, right? So we're getting kind of screwed on that end. But when again you go to that Farm Tech Days and you see that shiny new tractor that was made in Europe or Mexico or all the different places, well, guess who's going to be paying more for that tractor as well?
Absolutely. And there's also the fact that you will now see retaliatory tariffs. And so if we put something on their products, then other countries will slap tariffs on our products. And then again, that reduces the amount of sales that can be done for American consumers, not just in ag, but in other industries that get caught up in all of this. When it works right, And in 2023, for the last year that numbers are available, Wisconsin exported nearly $4 billion in agricultural and food products. Okay, so that's $4 billion coming into the Wisconsin economy. And while there have always been efforts at the state government level to look for new markets, and it's always a good idea to be looking for new markets, there, like you said, there are plenty of other markets. If China doesn't get their soybeans from Wisconsin, then they will get it from Brazil or other markets. We're not the only ones looking for new markets. And it just, again, makes it that much more important that you negotiate in good faith and try to get the best deal you can and not blow up a deal just for political expediency. Oh, wait, Hans, I feel like I just described the border security bill rather than trade it. You know what? I think this guy Trump has a pattern.
Yeah, I think it's called poor management.
Yeah.
A lot of these things don't make any sense at all. And as I stated earlier, I think it's important that we negotiate so that we've got good trade deals that work for us, but also work for our trading partners. And I think what's lost in all of this too is our ability or our, we should be looking also towards saying how can we leverage our trading impact to do good in the world. This is sort of that soft power that we can say to our trade partners, hey, you need to do a better job with your environmental regulations and your labor regulations and so forth, and move that needle in that direction while still doing good business. To me, makes more sense than just having this big hammer and making our trade situation just an extension of some, nonsense personal, I'm bigger than you type of deal.
Right. And it's not just the talking tough on tariffs, but also the again, so-called tough talk on immigration. And again, Trump continues to say there should be mass deportations. I can scarcely imagine what the Wisconsin rural economy would look like if there was both a trade war and a massive crackdown on migrant labor, whether this state's economy could even handle that kind of a blow.
Well, again, it's this willful ignorance amongst politicians and some of our rural neighbors that just say, boy, we should get all the people that weren't born in this country, we should kick them all out. Guess what? The economy just doesn't work very well if a lot of these folks leave. I mean, again, I can only speak to the ag sector with any sort of intelligence, but I can tell you that ag relies on foreign-born workers. It just does. And if you are nostalgic about the old days where that wasn't the case, well, good for you, but you can't unring that bell. Our current situation has us relying on foreign-born employees. That's a fact.
Yeah. And in fact, the Associated Press quotes an analysis by the Peterson Institute of International Economics that says they picked the number 1.3 million workers. If you deported 1.3 million workers, it would cause the size of the U.S. economy to shrink by 2%, which would essentially create a recession. So, I mean, Donald Trump is essentially promising a recession with what he plans to do with tariffs and with immigration, rather than, again, like the border security bill and like trade negotiations, try to manage the best deal possible. Hans, thanks for helping us provide some background on the issue. Safe travels. Have a great time at Farm Technology Days, and we'll talk to you again in a couple of weeks.
Thanks a lot, Pat. Take care.